And again, I want to emphasize, I wrote these notes while I was reading. So at this point, I wrote down, I can only hope that now when she gives oral sex, it will taste like candy corn. And then the next bullet point I wrote,
Oh, no.
I wrote the previous sentence before I read any further, which then answered my question.
Wow. Awesome.
Spooky season.
Ooh, welcome.
We're not gonna. We came dressed up today, ladies and gentlemen and friends. That I came dressed up in orange, and Hope, would you like to tell the crew what you're wearing?
I'm a skeleton drinking coffee. And by that I mean in life I'm actually a skeleton drinking coffee, and also on my sweatshirt is a skeleton drinking coffee.
So just know that from here on out we will be dressing according to theme. Welcome to Say Smut, a literary podcast for readers and non-readers and pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns alike. That is Hope, and she loves to talk
so much, and that is Sarah, and she loves to read. It's so true. And each episode, she's going to break down these crazy plots to me, who haven't read the books. And you'll never believe it, but this week I haven't read the book either.
I will say we just reversed how we do the intro, and I did not like it. I know I instigated it. I don't like it. Let's never do that again.
No, we put down an Uno card we weren't ready to deal with.
Yeah. Well, look, we want to say thank you for being patient, because it's been a weird time of like getting back into the podcast after our hiatus and then getting sick. All of us, everybody involved.
Am I a skateboarding dog? Because I'm feeling pretty sick. And by that, I mean I have a bad cold.
No, we all are sick. I am literally going on my second week, or like I guess 2 weeks of being sick, and they just put me on like another round of steroids to like help me get through this time. Yeah. So anyway, so please be patient with us as we are trying to figure this out, how to do this with full-time jobs and illnesses. So here's what I'm going to say about this episode. It is going to be fast and hard. And I know that we had some ridiculous smut that we've introduced into the podcast after the hiatus. And this is going to be no different, except for when we did The Door, the Unhinged book.
As you began talking, I became acutely aware of the door directly behind me.
Look, it's haunting us. It's going to be there.
It's got the right handle, and I'm very upset. Anyway.
So the one we had on Unhinged was very, not saying that like sex with a door isn't already taboo, but like it wasn't extremely smutty, as it had a solid plot for being like 70 pages.
True, that's true. A lot happened.
This one has no plot and has a lot of sex.
Who needs it?
I'm assuming that if you have been listening to us by this point, you are fully aware and conscious of the sexual elements we discuss. However, this is going to be pure sex. So just be ready for that. I want everyone to be prepared. And we're going to have some fun. I want to get into content warnings really quick. So there's going to be sexual content, and they said one of the trigger warnings was body horror, which after reading it, I don't think it's body horror in the way that you think it is. It's
interesting.
It's just a monster, right? It's not like I'm going to describe a body that is not human. And then there's like a slight element of stalking, which if you hear the element of stalking, it is kind of ridiculous. And there's also internal body shaming. So it's not somebody body shaming the other person. It's them feeling bad about their own body. Sure. And then we do have some pregnancy also involved. So
trigger warning, pregnancy.
Trigger warning. So Storygraph, this has a 3.24. Goodreads, this has a 3.49. Sarah did not put it on her Goodreads because I learned my lesson putting Unhinged on my Goodreads and having a lot of questions from my 300 friends and family who follow me on Goodreads. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll know I read this book. If you didn't, you'll never know I read this book.
So what we're saying is the real ones will know.
The real ones will know. Layla Fae is the author of the book today. It's called Jack. So Layla Fae focuses on steamy monster romances. She tends to lean towards like the dark erotic elements, and her books are not for the faint of heart. That's a warning in her own bio.
Yes. So if you have a faint heart, you don't have to listen to this episode of the podcast.
I will say we have kind of internally agreed that we will not do really dark romances. I have read dark romances that take some of these taboo elements to the extreme. We have agreed not to do that. I am giving an exception for this one because it is so fucking ridiculous. You're like, okay, could this be dark? Yes, but it's 50 pages of absolute nonsense. And so then you start giggling because you're like, I cannot even fathom picturing this moment. So, with that said, do you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, or suggestions before we get started?
I mean, I'm only full of questions because I don't know anything about the book. So I say, let's get started.
I'm going to be honest. You will have so many more questions as we go along because guess what? When you think that it's the wildest it has gotten, it goes wilder.
It's crazy for 50 pages.
Yes, for 50 pages. Yes. And if you saw the font size, it was very large. So I'm sitting there being like, okay, so this isn't just like a casual 50 pages. This is like could have been 30, maybe 25 if we got the font size correct here.
A great book for those of us who can't see.
What?
It's a great book for people who can't see. I have terrible vision. Got to get big font.
I think this cost me a whopping $2.99 on Amazon or Kindle. This is also one that is on Kindle Scribed, which no one fact check me because I'm probably going to say this wrong, but like essentially anybody can upload anything to Kindle, right? Like as long as it's like you can essentially write whatever you want and put it on Kindle and make money off of it. And this is essentially that. Okay.
Sweet.
All right. So we open on Susie, who's our main character. She reads cards for her clients and their love life. So like, what are they called? Tarot cards?
Yes.
And so, of course, her personal cards, whenever she pulls cards for herself, they are never as cheery as everybody else's. Everybody else has like a happily ever after. You're going to meet the love of your life. Her cards always show the devil.
Oh, man.
So like, shucks, why can I not have good luck? But it is Halloween and she is living in this house that she's lived in for a few years now. And it's not like super run down, but it's not like the most warm and welcoming. So she only gets about 3 trick-or-treaters a year, but she gets a big bowl of candy and is hopeful, and AKA me. I want you guys to know I sat out on my porch last year for 2 hours during Beggars Night, and which Beggars Night's a Midwest thing. If you don't know, like Beggars Night's always
caveat. It's not even a Midwest thing. It's a Des Moines thing.
It's not even a Des Moines thing.
It is a central Iowa thing.
It's an Iowa thing because like,
no, it is. It does not extend out to outside of central Iowa. As a person from eastern Iowa, not a thing.
This was not a point of my story, my caveat here.
Anyway.
But as somebody who sat on our porch during Beggars Night last year and had a massive bowl of like multiple pounds of candy and no one came to my front door, I was a little devastated. So Susie's in the similar position. Sure. You should also note now that Susie mentions that she's got thick thighs and a thicker body, and she doesn't talk positively about her body. Okay. And as a thicker woman, girl can relate. Like it happens. I get it. But I'll get more into this a little bit later. Now back to the cards. Okay. So on this Halloween night, she decides to pull some cards and ask the universe some questions. What question would you ask on Halloween night, given that you've had this experience of getting the devil every single time? What are you asking?
I mean, I would ask if the devil was going to come, but like, I see what I didn't mean to do there.
The delayed moment. Sorry. Okay.
It was not an intended joke. Like, if you keep seeing that, I guess I would ask like, is shit gonna pop off because it's Halloween? But then I also guess like maybe since it's Halloween and she keeps seeing this devil, she'll be like, am I gonna meet the love of my life? And now the cards would be like, yes, queen.
So she instead gives up on the love aspect and she's like, I'm lonely, but if I really need anything right now, it's to get laid. So she asks, how can I get laid? She pulls the card.
A good bone. Is he a skeleton?
Oh my gosh, that would have been hilarious, but no, unfortunately not. She
Next time.
pulls the cards and sees a naked man with a massive muscular body and a head carved like a pumpkin, and it was the devil card. Okay, because these tarot cards will have different designs for the photos. Okay,
Right.
and so then she pulls the next card, which is the lover's card, and then she pulls the last card and she gets the magician, and she jokingly says,
She's like,
if I perceive this at face value, I would get laid by the devil if I conjured him.
well,
Like, as somebody who cannot read tarot cards and has never tried, I would also perceive it the exact same way. So conveniently, she also does a little bit of magic, and one of her spell books just happens to fall off the shelf and flops right open to a love spell.
well, thank God.
So, like, what else is there to do than do the spell, right?
You got to do it.
You got to. So she does. And of course, nothing happens immediately. So she thinks, which, if you remember Unhinged, we have a theme of women doing maybe life-changing things and then nothing happening, and then them being surprised when something happens.
That's true. Although, in fairness to this woman, she's just trying to do a spell kind of loosey-goosey out into the world. Whereas in Unhinged, she just knew she had to fuck a door, and that was the only thing she needed to do, and then she literally did it. So for her to have been surprised by her outcome, a little crazy.
Little crazy. So a sound comes from her porch, and she's like, okay, it's too late for trick-or-treaters. Maybe this is some teenage tomfoolery happening. But of course she goes out there and no one is at the door.
Spooky.
But her jack-o'-lantern is missing.
Oh.
Okay. So at this time, I would like Hope to give us a brief history of the jack-o'-lantern. Please.
Let's hit the road, jack-o'-lanterns. Thank you so much.
These are great. That was a good one. I really liked it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you also to History.com, National Geographic, and the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, which is where I got all of this information. Before we get started, Sarah, do you make jack-o'-lanterns? And if you do, what kind of designs do you go for? And if you don't, why not?
I do. I have in the past. I haven't for many years because you and I worked at local news. I never had Halloween off. I've never really decorated my place because I lived in an apartment. So maybe in more recent years, now that I have a house, maybe I will. But I've typically do, the stereotypical face. I know people do like crazy designs in the like shallow out parts, so it like has dimension to it. I can't do that. I'm not that crafty.
Amazing. I'm proud of you for this. I think simple is best. I try to make things complicated and it never works out, but I do love a good jack-o'-lantern. I also just really like pumpkin seeds.
This won't be the first or the last time we talk about pumpkin seeds in this podcast, this specific episode.
That makes me so upset. Anyway, let's talk about the history of jack-o'-lanterns. Much like a very, very, very small percentage of my heritage, the origins of the jack-o'-lantern can be traced back to Ireland and also England and also Scotland.
Oh my gosh, this was meant to be.
I know. So, according to Nat Geo, the practice of using round fruits and or vegetables to depict human faces goes back thousands of years.
Because God forbid you don't have a round face. Okay, we can't use any other types of fruit. We only need round. You can't have a narrow, like oval looking one.
Well, actually not true, because as we will find, lots of things were used to create jack-o'-lanterns. It didn't even just start out as pumpkins. So yeah, all kinds of shapes. But the practice goes back thousands of years in some European Celtic cultures, but it took a deeper hold during Samhain, which is this Celtic festival celebrated on November 1st, and that has like an eve that has inspired a lot of the Halloween traditions that we have in modern day. So keep that in your noggin. Per my sources, the practice of decorating jack-o'-lanterns originated in Ireland in either the 1600s or the 18th century. I saw both. That's not my fault. I did my best. But anyway, around these times, an Irish folktale known as the Legend of Stingy Jack, aka Jack the Smith, aka Drunk Jack, aka Flaky Jack,
aka Jack the Ripper, aka JFK, aka
the artist formerly known as Stingy Jack. Yeah. This folk tale kind of came in popularity in the 18th century and has done some influencing also in the use of jack-o'-lanterns. So according to this legend, stingy, it is stingy. When I read it, my eyes wanted to say stinky. He could have been stinky. That's not my business.
Who knows how long he was laying out there, you know? Jack-o'-lanterns get stinky.
Who could say? Stingy Jack is just kind of a dude who's a douchebag. In this story, he invites the devil to go out and drink with him, but he doesn't want to pay. So instead, he first convinces the devil to turn into a coin so that Jack could use him to pay for the drink. So he's like, hey, my guy, we could pay for these drinks, but what if you just transformed into a coin and then we pretended to pay with you, and then you can like transform back and we'll technically have these drinks for free. And so the devil's like, yeah, I would love to transform into a coin. And then Jack's like, ha, idiot. And he keeps the devil in coin form with help from a silver cross that he had in his pocket. So he just turns the devil into a coin and then keeps him.
I have so many problems with this story, but that's okay.
Stingy, right?
Stingy.
Anyway, Jack eventually lets the devil go on the condition that the devil won't bother him for a year and won't claim his soul if he dies. And the devil's like, sure, please, I don't want to be a coin. I will leave you alone for a year.
Imagine fucking around with the devil.
Right. The balls of, I assume, white men are just really unbelievable.
Oh my gosh. Imagine having the audacity to fuck with the devil like that.
The caucasity, as it were, to fuck with the devil. I could never. But anyway, so it's all good. Jack frees the devil and then tricks him again. This time he's like, hey, devil, why don't you climb up that tree and pick some fruit? And I don't know why that worked, but it did. The devil's like, oh, hell yeah, man. I'll go climb up a tree and pick some fruit. And then while he's up there, Jack carves a cross into the bark of the tree so that the devil is stuck in the tree. And
I mean, I would like to know the Lord Jesus Christ's opinion on this subject because, look, I'm a Christian woman. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, but genuinely in this story, if it were real, if he's just like using Jesus Christ's symbol to keep the devil at bay, like how much is this man going to church? You know, like I'd be Jesus knocking on his door and being like, hey, look, I feel a little used in this situation.
I would be interested to know how much somebody canonically known as Stingy Jack may or may not attend church. Hard to say. In any case, the devil wasn't allowed to come down until he promised not to bother Jack for 10 more years.
Well, why put a cap on it? That's
I don't know.
I keep coming back to that.
Mistake. I mean, maybe it's just kind of fun to fuck with the devil, I guess, but also just make it like a long-term condition. Don't ever bother me deal and quit wasting everybody's time. I don't know why I'm being so defensive of the devil, but whatever. Anyway, eventually Jack died and God and the devil were both like, you suck so bad. What I wrote was, God and the devil decided that he was too much of a jackass.
Look, there's so many opportunities in this podcast.
Anyway, they were like, he's certainly not coming up to heaven. And the devil was like, this guy is so mean to me. I'm not having him be in hell either. So he is, when he dies, not allowed to go either and is instead left to roam the dark of night with only a burning coal for light to guide him. And
I'm surprised he even got the coal.
Yeah, I know. I think I had read somewhere that the devil felt kind of bad that he was going to have to wander around forever. So he was like, have this coal. IDK. I would be like, you're the worst.
I would be like, nah.
But in any case, Jack puts that coal in a carved out turnip and has been walking around with it as a lantern ever since. Amazing. So he is forever more known as Jack of the Lantern, which eventually became shortened to Jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, nice.
So there's one origin that we have is this story about a total asshole.
Okay.
Who is such a dick that even the devil doesn't want him in hell once he dies. So he has to roam like Earth, sadly, forever with an ember that he keeps in a turnip that he's carved. Okay.
All right.
It's okay. That's not the whole story of the Jack-o'-lantern. That's just the fun story of Stingy Jack. So keep that in your brain. Okay, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, it was also common to call a man whose name you didn't know Jack, like in 17th century Britain, and nightmen or like night watchmen would be known as Jack of the Lanterns or Jack-o'-lanterns too.
Okay.
So there's another origin. I also wanted to pull a fun quote from Nat Geo about a similar but separate phenomenon that is sometimes tied to Stingy Jack's legend. So the story helps explain a phenomenon known as ignis fatuus, which is a natural phenomenon that occurs in marshlands and bogs, such as those in Ireland's countryside,
Yeah.
that produces flickering lights as gases from decomposing organic matter combust. So, also known as fool's fire, fairy lights, will o' the wisp, and eventually jack-o'-lanterns that often seem like a floating flame would move away from travelers. That's a quote from Nathan Mannion, who is a senior curator for EPIC, the Irish Immigration Museum in Dublin. So if you were to try and follow the light, you could go into a sinkhole or a bog or drown. People thought it was Jack of the Lantern, a lost soul, or a ghost, although it was really just like decomposing vegetables, kind of farting out gas and it combusting, which is so silly.
It's silly, but at the same time, if you know anything
Awesome.
about bogs, like terrifying,
Bogs will
absolutely
mess you up.
terrifying. Like the fact that they preserve bodies
Wild.
too is anyway. Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, in Ireland and Scotland, people used large turnips and potatoes as early canvases to carve out their own versions of Jack's lanterns to frighten him and or evil spirits away. Immigrants brought traditions of carving out these lanterns overseas to America, and eventually people figured out that pumpkins, which apparently, and I didn't know this, but apparently are native to America, are better for carving it. So they didn't even start out on pumpkins. It didn't become a pumpkin thing until the tradition got brought over to America, and then they're like, look at these bad boys.
We colonized another tradition is what you're saying.
We did, and that's bad. However, I have seen some pictures on the internet. I do advise you to look up the history of jack-o'-lantern so you can see this too, of what a carved out turnip looks like. And it's spooky. It's a little spooky.
Okay. All right. Spooky. Everybody's assignment is to go look up carved out turnips.
I mean, I would do like history of jack-o'-lanterns, and you'll see some of the first ones, and they are a little upsetting. We can all agree that the pumpkin provides a nice canvas.
It does.
For the jack-o'-lantern.
It does.
So finally, the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns began up in early American literature, or like began showing up in early American literature, which made it more popular. So Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which was first published in the 1820s, but then was republished again in the 1850s, propelled the pumpkin into American culture because the headless horseman in that story chucks an uncarved pumpkin at Ichabod Crane.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lanterns are also written about in Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Great Carbuncle and Feathertop. And the Feathertop one is about a scarecrow with a carved pumpkin head. So fun. According to Cindy Ott, who is the author of Pumpkin, A Curious History of an American Icon, the first image of a pumpkin jack-o'-lantern.
An American icon.
Yeah.
She's an icon. She is the moment. Sorry.
She's everything. I will go to her Renaissance tour too. Yeah, so the first image of like the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern that we see in decorations and stuff with like triangle eyes and a big old smile was probably based off of one that was first shown in an issue of Harper's Weekly in 1867.
Wow, influencing at its base.
And I will say that for as bad as colonization is, current day pumpkins less scarier than carved out turnips.
Look, I'll take it. Is that your research?
That is my research. Thank you for my TED Talk.
I loved that story. That was a great story. Because now I'm going to corrupt it and make it terrible.
Yay. So take my folklore and just really, really run it into the ground.
This is where you're going to say colonizing is definitely not great. We have taken colonizing to a
for the record, I have never thought colonizing was great. But yeah.
Okay, so let's teleport back into our story. Susie is outside on her porch looking around. She's hearing noises. She's kind of a little freaked out. She's like, oh, what's going on? She thinks it's in her head, So she goes back inside, shuts the door, only to find that her entire house is on fire.
Oh, no.
And a monster is standing there who says, finally, you summoned me, witch. What kind of, you probably have some cues, but could you please describe what kind of monster you're thinking right now?
Yeah, it's a little bit scuffed because I know that the book's name is Jack, and I just did a bunch of jack-o'-lantern related stuff. I have to assume it also looks like you said the tarot card devil has a pumpkin for a head?
He sure does.
That I'm going to just say I don't fully understand, but I imagine he looks just like the card.
He sure does. So let me go down this description. So he is a jack-o'-lantern. He's got a big pumpkin head, and it's
Mhm.
carved out, and it's got like these kind of spooky facial expressions, and there's like even a light inside that's burning kind of out of control. But
Mhm.
the rest of his body is the body of a man. So he's got ripped abs and muscles and hands. And for some reason, he's not wearing a shirt, but he's got jeans on. I'm not sure why the devil was like, I need to prioritize here, I guess. But
It's like I built a human body and I ran out of time when it got to the head, so I grabbed your jack-o'-lantern.
yes, and I also just like threw on some jeans, some Levi's were laying out on the clothespins, and it was just what I had to work with.
I'm the headless horseman. It
I
was me
am the
the whole
headless.
time.
So, okay, so then he's got these pants that are riding pretty low on his hips, and there's a little happy trail, you know? What color do you think this man has for a little happy trail?
Oh, I have so many bad answers because
You're not going to get it right. I'm just going to tell you right now.
no, I mean, well, my first obvious thoughts are orange and green.
Yes.
So I was like orange because pumpkin, and then I was like, no, it wouldn't be orange, would be green because stem and leaves. So if it's not the obvious option, I don't know. Are they like I don't know. I don't know. I was gonna say like made of gold. Like, are they fancy and special?
No, it's just black hair. So I'm
No,
like
that's
sitting here like, and once you hear more description later, you're gonna be like, why did she not go with something a little more creative in that
just
realm?
some regular pubes on
Just
this guy.
regular body hair. So of course the bulge in his pants is just massive, and she can't stop looking at him. So much so he's like, quote, eyes up here, witch.
Yeah, cool. Quit looking at my gourd.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the girl does have the right sense to try and leave, but the metal
Most
of
common sense anyone's ever displayed in one of these books.
so far.
So far.
So far. But the metal of the door handle was so hot that she couldn't get it open because it's all burning, right?
Mm-hmm.
She ends up hiding in the pantry, and somehow he just appears in the pantry too. I don't know how his magic works. You're going to find out it's very accommodating. So, of course, this is a 50-page monster erotica, and it wouldn't be complete if she wasn't already immensely turned on by this situation.
Instantly, the way we all get. Super realistic.
Yeah. So, I want you guys to know first and foremost that I wrote these notes while I was reading it. So at the time, like I was making bullets when I didn't read forward. And for the sake of not having another name for this guy at this point, we're going to call him Jack because that is the title of the book. I don't think it's far-fetched to tell you that he's going to tell her name. His name is Jack. No creativity in that sense.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm also going to tell you something, and I want you to explain the logistics of it for me.
Oh, okay.
And justify it for me. So this guy has a pumpkin head, right?
Mm-hmm.
To our knowledge, there's no body parts that are like leading into the pumpkin. It's just a fire and a pumpkin. How does he sniff her?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, well, was it her pumpkin? Did it say it was a jack-o'-lantern? Like, did it say
no. Yeah, it was a jack-o'-lantern. It's got the facial features.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know the magic that makes a jack-o'-lantern head sniff, but as long as it's carved as something with a face that at least has a nose to pretend to sniff with.
Yeah. So he sniffs her, and I just was kind of stumped on that one. So Jack implies that Susie has been waiting for him, and he's been somehow watching her. Apparently, like a while back, like 2 years ago, she accidentally botched another spell that accidentally conjured him, but like didn't open the door fully for him. So he's just been kind of lingering.
And at that time, he lost his head, and now he has to replace it with the pumpkin.
Again, cannot explain to you the functions of his facial features or bodily features outside of this conjuring. So just take it for what it is. But he's been chilling, and then finally he's become this half pumpkin, half human man. And like in this like little monologue he's giving, he also just like insults her toys because he's like, you've never been satisfied. And then he's like with those puny little toys. And I'm like, Okay, dude, we're sex positive here. You don't got to talk that way.
First of all, we're sex positive. Second of all, why are all these men watching all these women masturbate in these books?
I just remembered this from the Unhinged book. Thank you for reminding me.
The parallels between this and Unhinged
It
are
is
just, there's so many.
There's so many. But I'm also going to tell you, in this masturbation creeping element, she also secretly masturbates to monster porn. So this is a really ideal situation.
Perfect. Well, that really changes like almost all of my perception of it. Now it rules. Continue.
Like, you know what? This is actually exactly my kink. Thank you so much. So he tells her his name is Jack. And they're still in this pantry. And again, I want everybody to just visualize that he's telling her these things while he's got this jack-o'-lantern head on and like
in a pantry.
Like, yeah, in a pantry. And then he like claps his hands and it turns into a room full of candles. So please enjoy this quote as I tell you. Quote, she looked at him, golden and glorious in the magical candlelight, that body so out of her league, that monstrous head so out of this world, and that bulge completely out of proportion. End quote.
It was 6 feet long.
We haven't seen it yet. It's just the bulge.
Just the bulge. It was 6. It was so out of proportion, or it was minuscule. And I proportion on the other side of the scale.
As a thick girl, I'm required to say, girl, don't tell the reader that his body is out of your league. That's ridiculous. All bodies are important. So what do you think she sees? And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to know, but what do you think she sees when he drops his pants?
I mean, I made a very funny joke about gourds earlier. I wanted to be an eggplant so bad.
Look, I would love it to be, but his penis is in fact orange. His penis is orange and it's
orange with black pubes. That's terrible. I'm sorry. That's body shaming. I would like to check myself.
Body shaming.
That was very rude. I take that back. Shame on me.
And again, I want to emphasize, I wrote these notes while I was reading. So at this point, I wrote down, I can only hope that now when she gives oral sex, it will taste like candy corn. And then the next bullet point I wrote, I wrote the previous sentence before I read any further, which then answered my question.
Wow. Awesome.
Would you like to guess what he tastes like?
I hope it's candy corn.
Enjoy this direct
If not, my second runner-up is pumpkin spice latte. Proceed.
Well, your second runner-up is correct because this is the quote. Quote, he tasted like pumpkin spice syrup, only with a sharper tang, more ginger, less sweetness. Imagine a society. I just want you to think about this. Imagine a society if this was reality. Like the amount of women that, or, you know, anybody who's attracted to a male presenting body, experiencing oral sex, if that's what it tasted like.
Truly wild.
I just feel like we would live in a very different society if that was true.
I believe that as well. Unfortunately, it is not.
Unfortunately, it's not. So she even says to him, you taste like Halloween, which, girl, don't give him all your cards. Like, don't show all your cards.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween.
This is Halloween. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know. Here's some more description of his penis. Please enjoy.
I can't wait.
His penis is also almost as large as her forearm.
Oh, out of proportion is correct.
Yes, it sure is. It also has 5 horizontal ridges that run around it. So imagine like the for her pleasure ribbed condoms.
Sure.
You know, like that. It's circular. It's not like up and down. Okay. Right. So this is really for her pleasure. And would you like to guess how many balls he has?
I didn't assume it would be more or less than 2.
It is in fact 4. And the excuse is
why?
The more balls, the more seed. Okay. The more of this magical pumpkin spice latte taste.
Oh. Well, I had also forgotten about our pregnancy trigger warning.
Oh, trust me. I'm so glad you remembered that. It will come back up. So,
oh boy.
somehow she's able to give him oral sex and attributes it to his, quote, Halloween magic, which this isn't the first or the last time I'm going to say Halloween magic.
We all have a little bit of Halloween magic inside of us.
Yeah, we all do. I hope
not as much as her, but we all
not
do.
as much as So then he takes her to the parlor after the oral sex is finished. He takes her to the parlor of her house and then claps to make it into another room full of candles with a nice plush red carpet. So I'm not sure why we had to leave the first room full of candles.
Room after room of candles.
But apparently he said this room smells more like his magic, so it's better for him. And then he claps and all of her clothes come off. And of course, she's super self-conscious about, and this is her wording, her saggy boobs and her cellulite. Aww. And like, yes, this is a story of another self-conscious thick girl who gets confidence because a stereotypical jacked guy, which I said, pun intended, she only gets confidence because this stereotypical attractive jacked guy loves her body. Okay. And that is a trope I absolutely cannot stand.
Yeah.
So I want you to now picture this next scene. All right. I'm going to give you another direct quote. Mm-hmm. Quote, a sudden slurping noise came from, I'm so sorry. I had multiple moments last night where I stopped and I was like, what am I doing? I have multiple degrees in communications. And this is
well, the good news is that I don't have multiple, so it's fine. We balance out.
But like I have multiple degrees in communication and I don't know how to properly compute this information.
Yeah, you must have failed smut reading out loud class in college.
Okay. And that's not to say I'm not trying to say that I am better educated than anybody. I'm just saying that like sometimes my brain just like can't compute things at all. And I'm like, I don't know how I even got through high school. So this is awesome. Okay. Are you ready for this track?
I'm as ready as I can be, given the circumstances.
Quote, a sudden slurping noise came from his carved mouth and a tongue emerged, a red, long, meaty monstrosity that was more like a muscular tentacle than a tongue, end quote.
Now look, just because I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean it's bad, because again, she likes monster porn.
She sure does. And look, when you hear what this tongue can do, you're going to understand that this is a body created for women. It's like when we did Ice Planet Barbarians and the whole body was like made for a woman's pleasure.
Yes. Absolutely. 100% cooties 100% of the time.
But again, I want to emphasize that this man has no lips, no lippy lips. And so when he puts his tongue in her mouth, the visual.
You're kissing a pumpkin.
You literally just have your mouth open and there's just a carved pumpkin mouth against yours. So anyway, he stops that nonsense and then he goes down on her. So, and then not long after that, they start having, like penetrative intercourse. Okay. So I should now mention that when he growls, his penis vibrates.
First of all, you had not mentioned that he growls, period. So that's something I would like to talk about.
If you read any romance, you know that growling is referenced, and a lot of people are like, how does that even sound or go? Like, I don't even understand how somebody would do that naturally and it not sound ridiculous. But this is also jack-o'-lantern devil smut, so I feel like I don't need to explain this.
Yeah, I think it explains itself. Go on.
So then when it's over with, instead of the air smelling like sex and sweat, it actually smells like cinnamon and ginger, which like
I was hoping we could do a I smell sex and candy. Yeah.
No. Honestly, I was waiting for candy corn to be at all mentioned in this, and it is not. And I'm very upset about that. So they spoon and they're like very intimate, which he came off really abrasive and aggressive at first. So now that they're spooning, it's just very awkward to me. But she literally asks him, why do you like me? And I just didn't know that we were in the 7th grade, but I guess here we are. So this man responds like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how attraction works. Like completely kind of disregards her comment. And then he starts complimenting her. And then she obviously, you know, kind of like tamps him down and is like, you know, I'm not that cute. I'm not that attractive. And he does the whole, I'm not putting up with you talking bad about yourself, you know, and compliments all of the quote unquote bad things that she feels about herself, and is like, I love your, you know, softness, and I love your stretch marks and all these things. Right.
Right.
And then he literally says, quote, let's not forget about your more important traits, and then starts talking about her personality.
Yay.
I've been low-key stalking you for 2 years because you summoned me and didn't finish the work.
Summoning
and so now
me?
I've just been watching you for 2 years, and I know your heart.
Yeah, I just know everything about you.
So after this lovely speech in which he low-key says that he's in love with her, he claps his hand and a bed appears with some lube.
And more candles. Just
probably.
Sarah, here's the thing about clapping. You get annoyed, but one of these times the room around you will transform and be full of candles.
I highly doubt that.
But don't know. We
the day
can
it
never
happens,
know.
The day it happens, I will shut up and never argue about your clapping ever again. They proceed to have anal sex. And now I want to know how you would feel if a man kept talking about his, quote, magical pumpkin lube. Is it homemade? Is it organic? Is it all natural? I don't know.
I have a lot of questions. Well, it's just that in my...
Were you going to say, in my humble opinion?
No, I was going to say, in my experience, most people didn't have their own, like, self-generated lube. And so, like, No.
This is bottled. Like, this isn't like his body's not producing this. This is bottled lube that he has made manually.
Oh, it's worse.
And he has made it, he tells her, with Susie in mind. He's like, I made it with you in mind.
He's just like, there's some glitter in there for effect. It looks magical. It like glows in the dark a little.
This is the skin of a killer, Bella.
This is the skin of a killer. It smells like pumpkin spice.
And I'll also mention now, because we did get into the growling, that he does hum while he's having sex with her. A little jingle. Just a little.
Any jingle in particular? Do we want to find out, or no?
No, it's literally got no point.
All right, cool.
After they're
literally doing my business.
So after they're done and she goes to the bathroom, and he actually claps her hand and she appears in the bathroom to take care of her needs, which very convenient. Yes. She's convinced that he's going to leave while she's in the bathroom. And she's like, if Jack leaves now, I can never be happy in a relationship and in sex. Like it's been the best thing I've ever had. I could not live without him. Right.
Sure.
And he like appears in the mirror and is like, why are you making me wait for you, bitch? He doesn't say that direct quote, but he's like,
imagine the jump scares.
So any questions of abandonment have now gone through the window.
He's in fact watching you.
They now have a magical bath, and it is literally magical because it helps take away all of her sore spots and pain from taking his forearm of a penis.
That's good.
And she finds out that her spell will only hold for one night. And after that, he will be a pumpkin once more, which I find that a great Cinderella reference. So
yeah, that is a great Cinderella reference. I agree.
So what do you think would be required of her to keep him and for him to stay in the real world? What do you think would have to happen?
Some kind of sacrifice, like you if you give up your powers, maybe he'll stay. I don't know. What does she have to sacrifice? I don't know her this well.
Well, you're the one that used the word sacrifice.
I did. That's
what
true.
She have to do. So I mean, some people may see this as a sacrifice.
More magic, another spell.
She has to be bred by him.
Not what I would have thought at all.
A baby would make an unbreakable bond. So she would also be made immortal if she got pregnant with the baby. So they would live forever and ever and ever.
Trap that man with an infant. This is messed up.
Well, he wants her to have the baby. He's like, I actually have thought about settling down. I think it would be a really great idea.
We've spoken for a couple hours maybe, but probably not, because we're mostly doing physical activity.
Yes.
And I want you to know that I can't see my life without you. And so I would like to get you pregnant immediately.
And I had a moment when I was reading this where I thought, didn't they already just have unprotected sex in literally every hole they could possibly do it? But Jack answers this by saying, before you only got the juice without the seed, but this time I can give you the full
Oh,
mix. And that's a direct
oh,
quote. Imagine a
great.
man, imagine a man telling you, you just got the juice before without the seed, but
You just got the juice
this
before.
time I can give you the full mix.
Mm.
I feel like you're at the bar and you're like,
Great.
"Hey, is that like a margarita mix or are you gonna like, you know what I mean?" And it's like you're getting the full mix now. So then I just keep
Ugh.
thinking, I don't believe they ever talk about the seed actually including pumpkin seeds, but I have to believe in my heart of hearts that they are pumpkin seeds.
If nothing else, the semen don't look like semen. They just look like tiny pumpkin seeds.
So, Layla, I am telling you right now that we are now collaborators on this book, and I have now added this element into the book. Okay.
Awesome.
So, to no one's surprise, she agrees. And the next time they have sex, she kisses his carved mouth, which
Still hard for me, but go
still
off.
hard. And while he's penetrating her, he does give her oral sex by making his tongue grow longer
Oh.
to reach.
Sure.
Again, I want to emphasize just when you think this couldn't get wilder, it gets wilder.
Look, and she loves it because
she loves
again,
it.
she loves monster porn. So keep that in mind. Don't yuck her yum.
No, absolutely not. So when they get done having sex, he's like, "Well, if I'm still here by the morning, it means you're pregnant. If I'm
What a
not,
crazy pregnancy test.
we're gonna get a little pumpkin patch full of little ones all running around here." So
Oh,
before,
man.
but then he's like, "If it doesn't work, you can summon me again and we can try again." And she's like,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was
"So
possible.
there are no consequences to these. There's
Summon
no
him every day, and then don't summon him when he's being annoying.
yes, literally." So after they fall asleep, after this, which I didn't know pumpkins could fall asleep or they would need to fall asleep, but I didn't.
Really interesting about closing your eyes, I suppose, when you're a pumpkin.
Yeah. Like just like she talks about the light dimming after sex, like not being as hot, but like I'm questioning, does the light just go out?
Because wouldn't that mean
Or
you're dead?
that exactly. Or is it just like really, really, really faint?
It's a lot of questions.
Okay. Anyway.
It's like a pilot light.
After this, the chapter ends and it is the epilogue next. Would you like to guess how it ends?
Well, most assuredly she's got his seed, pun intended. Like most certainly they have a child. Or maybe it didn't, if it doesn't work the first time, they try it again. Like I just assume it worked.
They are now living in a lovely cottage and she is very pregnant. And she tells him how at one point, like when he was trying to persuade her to have his baby, he had said, like, you're never going to want for anything. Like, you're going to have everything you need. Like, you'll be well provided for. And she had tells him in this epilogue, you have told me how, like, well provided I'd be cared for, like all this stuff. We need to learn to give back. And because we just have so much good in our lives right here. So I've been trying to keep this so serious, and
How
you
much time has passed? Well, now it's been a couple of months, I guess.
Well, and we don't know how long it takes to be pregnant with the pumpkin.
That's
baby.
true. Is this regular rules or is it Twilight rules?
I don't know if it's going to be like 9 months or if it needs to be more developed because
I can only assume the next morning she looked a few months pregnant.
Yeah. Well, okay. So he's like, all right, we'll give back. And he sits down on like the little porch rocking chair and she begins to give him a hand job. And right before he finishes, she pulls out a bowl and she brings the contents over to some jars labeled, quote, organic pumpkin syrup contains monster semen. Drink responsibly.
But why?
Because it tastes so good.
But why and we're giving back, and how is this giving back? I don't understand.
Everybody can drink the amazing tasting
I
pumpkin spice syrup.
I guess it's giving. Yeah. No, I don't know.
You're like trying to validate it so hard.
Yeah, no. I'm trying so hard to make it make sense. I'm trying so hard to understand.
Can you write
I'm
down
trying
the
so
time?
hard to think of how that's generous for people. I will say that it's generous to a very specific community of other people who
Can
also
you?
like monster porn.
So at one point, I thought it was definitely going to be his homemade
Right. I was like,
fucking
this is
lube.
how he makes his lube, his magic
So
lube.
I was a little disappointed that it wasn't that.
Me too.
But that is the end of our story. Do you have any final thoughts or concerns or
I
suggestions?
don't think my brain will ever think again, if we're being really honest. What a trip. What a beautiful
It was
trip.
a trip. And with that said, we're gonna go through our scoring. I have to say, I feel like we can do a diversity score, and I'm gonna give it like I'm personally going to give it a 3 because we did have a woman who is curvy in it. You
And
know what? No, we're
also,
gonna pop it down to no.
it's
We have a
hard,
pumpkin
right?
man. We have a pumpkin man. I can't.
Well, and also I was thinking from diversity from the perspective of like she has interest in monster porn, and so in
Yeah,
that way that's diverse.
that
There's not
sure
like
is.
racial diversity,
No,
but
no,
there is
no.
interest diversity. But I wouldn't rate it
Yeah.
super super high either. I was between a 2 and a 3.
What are you going with?
2.5.
Wow. Okay. Plot. What are you giving it? Because I'm definitely giving it a 1 on the plot scale.
Ooh. Look,
There
I'm
was
gonna.
no plot. There was no plot. And every point of the plot was easily excused as like,
That's
well, you
true.
can just summon me again and we'll just keep working at it.
There was almost plot, but then there wasn't. So I guess I will give it a 2 for plot. It's not what we were here for anyway, so it's fine.
I am going to give it a 5 for smut. This
For
is
sure.
we're maxing out. Like I feel like this is if you guys I want to emphasize I did not give graphic description because I'm not sure if everybody wants to sign up for graphic description of what I read, but it was pretty graphic and it was
Yeah, for sure.
purely sex. So what would you like to give it?
What do I want to give it? I mean, I'm going to give it a 4. I think
Ooh.
I enjoy a little more like it's hard to request something a little more realistic. I like when there's more conversation between the people and it's realistic from the perspective of like how they're interacting with each other.
Yes. I
And
know.
being generous with your pumpkin seed is not, I don't know. I was just going to give it a 4.
All right.
I'm having a great time and my brain hurts and it's getting a 4.
Okay, I have put a link in here. Do you want to click on it and tell us what the cover of the book looks like?
Well, if that isn't a absolutely ripped white man's torso with a very happy looking, very run-of-the-mill jack-o'-lantern head on fire on top.
It is exactly what you think this man looks like.
Yeah, so there's like some kind of like I don't know, cloudy nighttime sky happening in the background a little bit. It's mostly just a dark cover. I don't know if this will help anybody, but if you've carved jack-o'-lanterns, the pattern we've got is like down pointing triangle eyes, upward pointing triangle nose, and a smile with like kind of square chunky teeth, like very stereotypical jack-o'-lantern face. Very happy. Big old smile on this guy. And the jack-o'-lantern is just kind of encapsulated in flames for that's not how I was envisioning it, but it's good for some people. And then yeah, it's just like a ripped white dude's body, and he does have some low pants because you can see his that little line. And I suppose I'll tell you that Jack is written on the cover in spooky font, but it's white,
definitely
so
like
it also kind of looks like cum font.
I will also tell you that Jack is like got that drippy goo kind of font that's like Goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know,
Goosebumps font is a good way to
yes.
describe it.
And then on the bottom it says Halloween Monster Erotica.
It does, and it is. And I can't thank Layla enough for it.
So what are you going to give the cover? I'm giving it a 4 because it is almost everything I wanted, but it's almost a little too on the nose. You know, I wanted something a little like, I mean, it could have been really outlandish.
I want to be reasonable about the author's ability to create art.
Oh, yeah.
For their page. So with that in mind, I will give it a 4. But what I would love in my dream for the repub, for the special edition,
Okay.
For the hardcover is like a little more cartoony so that you can do like a weird little tongue in there and like a spookier looking face. Like I assume that the process was how I would, if you were like, Hope, please Photoshop me a cover for this book. What I would do is find the body of a hunky man, delete out his head, find a picture of a jack-o'-lantern, put it on top, and then find some flame effects and add it to a pumpkin in this way, which is perfect. So I would just like, if we had a graphics budget and a team, I would animate it more and make it look scarier because it's just like the pumpkin's like a little too happy for me.
Yeah, it's
my
not
taste in pumpkin men.
If we're supposed to be menacing here, I would want it a little creepier. But look, that comes out to a 65% for me and a 62.5% for you. And look, that's, for 50 pages of Halloween jack-o'-lantern smut, I'll take it. To finish us off, what is your Say Smut moment from the book?
Isn't my Say Smut moment? Holy guacamole. The whole thing was just a roller coaster of what? I don't know how to pick.
Well, would it help if I went first?
Yeah, go ahead. What really of all of these things?
You're going to think I'm ridiculous.
I can't wait.
But the fact that they were kissing at points was like really upsetting to me.
It is so funny, especially if you look up the cover of the book to imagine this like big square gaping teeth mouth kisses.
How do you even kiss it? Like, I just don't understand. But on top of that, the fact that he custom made lubricant.
Oh yeah, he did make custom magic lube, and I feel like I didn't get enough detail about the way in which it was magic.
And my third and final, not actual final, but I will say final for this segment, is the 4 balls.
Oh yeah, why?
Unnecessary.
Here's my what the smut. Actually, I'm glad that you went first because I had forgotten about this and now it's back in my head and it's crazy. My what the smut is when this dude was like, "You just had my de-seeded juices before." That's a scam. He's lying to you. Don't believe him.
Never believe the man. No, I'm just kidding.
First of all, I don't believe him. And it doesn't matter. Use a condom.
Please use a condom. Even the door used a condom. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, once you were trying to be with child, totally chill. Don't worry about that condom. Throw it off. Get rid of it. But like, don't trust a pumpkin-headed man who tells you that he's just going to give you his juices without any of the seeds, because that's not true. It's not safe.
It's absolutely not. Are there any other what the smut moments you want to?
I mean, again, the whole book.
The whole book. No, this was one that it was like, I want to know what everybody else's is. So maybe I'll put like a question on our social that's like.
I will say the epilogue threw me for a big loop because I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that.
Nope. I did read the epilogue twice just to make sure I understood fully.
Yeah.
So we want to know what your guys's Say Smut moment was, because this had a lot of them. You can find us, if you so choose, on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Say Smut Podcast. We are almost at 1,000 on TikTok, which is kind of incredible because we just kind of post memes and clips from our. So thank you. And additionally, we would love to hear your book recommendations. I do have a roster and I'm always adding to it. So send them our way via email at saysmutpodcast@gmail.com. And hey, have a wonderful start to your spooky season.
Yes, I hope this frightened you into using protection at least a little bit until such a time as you've decided that you would like to have pumpkin kids with your pumpkin love.
Yeah, and don't be a jack off this season,
Be a jack off this season. Too spooky.
Too spooky. All right, bye.
Bye.